human rights, conflict transformation, and peace building. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will talk about the role of the state, NGOs, civil society, and social movements in the struggle for power, social justice, and social change, using the Philippines as a case. As a standard procedure, I have the following chapters, as you all very well know. First part, so what's the problem I'm dealing with? Well, one, there's a lot of literature on human rights and peace education, thousands of them, academic journals. However, there's a paucity of literature on popular education. I'll call it from now on pop ed, especially pop ed in the global south and in countries where there are armed hostilities, civil war, and internal troubles and strife. And then, in most cases, even the United Nations and UNESCO, they have literature on popular education, informal education. However, not much has been written from the point of view of the popular educators themselves. Many of the literature are from the point of view of teachers, classrooms, urban settings, and so on. So, what do I intend to do? To look at the role being played by the lived experiences and the views of popular education, popular educators working for social change. They're involved in civil society. So 3 questions I raised. One, so what are the causes of the armed conflict? For which reason we have armed hostilities in the Philippines? What are the roots of the problem? Secondly, what are the learning experiences that popular educators need to have in order to respond to the problems obtaining in society? And 3, what do they do? So what are the strategies? So there are 2 possible ways by which I can look at the conflict and the popular education in the Philippines. One is through functionalism, according to which everything has structure and role, and we perform our roles, and we're all in harmony. Now, if there's a problem, we just try to work it out. But I'm not using that route. I'm using the conflict theory. Because of different social classes, different social interests, therefore, there are clashes. Conflict exists as a fact. And due to inequality, people will struggle against such inequality. Therefore, changes will take place. And the degree to which people accept government policies or not depends on the policies. For whom, at whose expense, who benefits. So, by way of definition, popular education refers to anything and everything that people can learn from social movements. And many of the things that they deal with include social justice, human rights, gender issues, women, the environment, and development. Power is the ability of A to affect the action of B, from influence to coercion to control. It's a whole range. And social change is modification in social structure or roles. And according to Phyllis Cunningham, there are 3 ways by which social change can take place. One is we fit in, integration. Secondly, no, we don't fit in. We have to change some things. They don't really work well. Or third, we really have to dig deep and have radical change. And according to Phyllis Cunningham again, based on that, the 3 ways by which you can bring about changes: integration, reform, and transformation. One, therefore, is consensus, so we agree to standards by which society is pulled together. And secondly, reform, so we just accept diversity. We have different views, different gender, ethnicity. Let's accept each other's differences. But the third one is transformation. Now, that's not enough. We have to raise the consciousness of the people and to be directly involved in social change. Now, for literature review, some things that I dealt with were human rights. There are 2 baskets, economic, social, and cultural, on the one hand, and civil and political on the other hand. Social justice, that's another dissertation by itself, but just in 1 minute, there are 2 ways by which you can study social justice. One is grounded on social reality. That's what Amartya Sen, the United Nations, and Howard Zinn did. Let's look at the history of injustice, after which we work for justice. And then there's the other, more famous approach, more regularly used, John Rawls, the classical seminal work on justice, and Noam Chomsky. We have preconceived highest goal. Justice equals fairness. They are contending approaches to justice. And then peace is not simply the absence of war or anti-war, which is very important. According to the United Nations, they're more than what meets the eye. It includes inner peace, social justice, compassion, human rights and responsibility, intercultural solidarity, and environmental care. So if we want to have peace, we have to deal with all of these aspects. Now, I use the term peace building in the title, but it's a shorthand for peacemaking, peacekeeping, and peace building. And then now, how do peace and justice and power all go together? So you have the elite imposing on the people, and the people demanding justice. And how you do that, you have standards, human rights standards. Say Article 2, Paragraph 3 of this document says. And then both government and the people are bound to them. Conflict transformation is another key term in my title. It's a shorthand for many things: conflict prevention, resolution, settlement, management, transformation. We can talk about that during the Q&A. State and civil society, again in the title. In general, the literature from Joel McDowell to everyone else, David Corton, to Finger, to Holtz, would say state is on the one hand, and everything else that's not state is civil society. But then they exist in nature. So you have two groups interacting with one another. Civil society by itself is just non-state, but you have organizations and social movements. They are part of each other. Okay, the intellectual. What is the role of intellectual? Well, in liberal education, we're told the professor should be neutral and show all sides. But I have critical intellectuals who say otherwise. No, you can stay as an individual if you want, or you can be part of civil society, or you can be part of the state as an intellectual. Jean-Paul Sartre, in his book, Plaidoyer pour les intellectuels, said, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to be part of the struggle of the people. So he won the Nobel Prize, the only one who refused to accept the Nobel Prize. And that's what he said. Secondly, you have Antonio Gramsci. There are two types of intellectuals, traditional and organic. We're looking at the people who are organically part of the movement, who produce knowledge, even if they're not part of the academe. Third, you have Noam Chomsky, who said, well, there's a heavy burden for intellectuals. Since we study and we have so much access to data, we should speak the truth and expose lies. And Edward Said said, well, we have a role, not just for ourselves, but to take the responsibility for the community. So looking at that, we have the framework that puts the individual on the one hand and state on the other hand, and everything else in between is civil society. And then it's not easy accept or reject. You have dissent, if there's coercion, and then your support using ideology from the state and so on. So it's a very interactive relationship between state and civil society. And if you're not involved, you stay in the realm of the individual. Research process. I look at the individual level, how they learn, what they learned, how they interact with one another. Secondly is on the organizational level, what organizations to which they're attached, and then social and state level. So on the national level, what's going on? My positionality. I take sides. I don't claim to be neutral. That's the old school of one school of thought in education, in social research. The other school of thought is you just lay out your positionality. Okay, so I take the side of having both the need for looking at the constraints as well as the ability of people to bring about change. So theory building, so I look at what's common from the data I got And then as soon as I get new data, compare them constantly. And then I really found out like, whoa, they all are saying the same thing. It's saturated. So you're glad if you reach that stage. So things that I got were self-reports, observation in some of the learning sessions, documents from the archives of what they've written and done, photos, videos, and then jot down notes, took summary of general trends. Okay, people I have access to were 53